Hey Hollywood Hills fans, and welcome to episode 6 of the season. Now, incredibly enough, we have just rolled into the racing month of March, but right at the end of the racing month of February, we had a triple header. There were 3 events on the same weekend. Now, I hate it when that happens because it's very difficult to cut this into 3 pieces, but thankfully with the production element and the partnership that Hollywood Hills has with LiveX, we are able to divide and conquer. So we actually went out and covered elements of the production for 3 different tours. But the main crew, that was 3 of our best guys, went out there to cover 424. Now, 424 have been wanting to work with us for a little while. We did some filming for them last year and gave them the actual footage, and they did their own production. But I've been working with Jono a little bit for the last couple of years, giving him some help and advice. In fact, I was on the mic at his first event at the beginning of 2019. He hooked me up with this cap and a nice shirt and everything. And unfortunately, that first year had some lumps and bumps in it. It was difficult to kind of like get his traction going. And then, we all know what happened in 20 and 21. No racing in 2020 for Jono. And then in 2021, he started to get his series going again, kind of found his feet. And then this year, he phoned me at the beginning of the season and said, look, he wants to go big. He wants to go Hollywood, was his words. So we sent the whole crew out there. We put together a big show. This is a 43-minute show. So go put the kettle on, get a nice cup of tea, nice cup of coffee if that's your tipple, and just enjoy this. This was the opening round of the 424s. Jono did a real nice job of it. I'm super proud of the production work coming out of Hollywood Hills and LiveX. This is the first event, the Fontaine show, and it was a good one as well. So check this out. We'd love to hear back from you guys.
This 424 cross-country racing action is proudly brought to you by HFC Engineering, VW Mastercars Hatfield, AC Crane Maintenance, EMD Boxburg, Insight Printing and Packaging, and the 424 Garage. In its 3rd season of racing, the 424 Cross Country Championship rolled round in 2022 to bring us their opening round of the season championship. Fontaine, round number 1, would be remembered as one of their biggest and best events yet. After working on their format and the setup of their events for the last couple of seasons, it seems like 2022 the 424 guys have got it bang on. Massive buy-in from the quad racers and the juniors, and a ton of riders that have never yet seen the flag drop, never yet gone racing. This, for many, would be their first time out against their competitors.
It's our first round of the 2022 championship for the 424 series. We couldn't wait for it, and the calendar is so jam-packed. So luckily we got our dates out early. Now we're starting to run. First race, Fontaine. Nice. We were stressed out. This route was wet. The last couple of weeks, Joburg, it was raining, and so we had to cut a lot of places, change the route continuously because you drive and suddenly in a heap of mud. Then we need to take it away, and then we start from scratch. But we got an awesome loop, and the guys are going to enjoy it. What we started is, we started now at 8 o'clock, we've got our mini class. That is now a new class we started for the beginning little kids. That's kids from, say, 4 years old up to 7 years old on PV50s. What we marked out, we used about a 1.7 kilometer flat track loop for them. That forms part of the main loop as well. So from 8 o'clock till 10 to 9, they are going out, they're going to show us our stuff. And then just afterwards, the big bikes or the quads and the juniors go out on track.
The mini class is so cool as well. You'll see a lot of Pee-wees and a lot of the small wheel 50cc races. And these are guys that predominantly aren't racing on any of the other tours, meaning it is fresh blood, and these will truly be the future of the sport. The stepping stone class would allow these guys to go out of the minis up into the 50cc's and then continue their journey after that through the ranks of the 65s, 85s and forward into the main loops, which would start with the 125 categories. The riders were led out by a sweeper marshal to make sure the guys knew exactly where they were going on lap number 1 and make sure they didn't get lost. It was pretty easy, but if you went off track, you could get a little bit wild and out of control, but there were marshals and a lot of chaperones to make sure the kids were safe and happy and enjoying their time behind the bars. Some of the dads were a little bit keen on putting maybe a little bit too much oil in the bikes to make sure that they ran good for the rest of the day, but all bikes did run good. All kids did see the finish line, and everyone had a great time racing on the short but fun, just under 2 kilometer racing track. As a key feature as well, the track was kept extremely close to the pits, meaning there was massive support, not just from the mums and dads, but also for the racers that were waiting for their bite of the cherry, lining up to go riding in the quad and the senior motorcycle category. As the race wore on, a couple of riders were getting a little bit tired. You could see that their reactions weren't what they once were. But with just under an hour of racing, most riders were able to bring it home to the finish with massive grins under their helmets and relieved mums and dads knowing that their little Johnnies were back after their adventures. There was, of course, results to be had. There was going to be a couple of standout riders. 1 or 2 riders going down in flames, breaking the peak, but dads on the sideline to make sure they can keep going and keep the throttle wide. A nod of the head, a shout of encouragement, and it was all done. David Gordon walked away with the win in the minis, beating out on Eben Schultz, who, even though he had his issues, got the number 2 spot ahead of McLean and Denton. With the minis out the way, we opened up onto the big track to start thinking about the quaddies. Before that, though, we went into the pits to chat to some of the key players.
Had a bit of a slow year last year, took a year off, did a little bit of racing, not much, but we're making a comeback this year. So we were at the first GXCC, now we're at the 424 series supporting Johnny. It looks like a nice venue, there's been a little bit of rain, so hopefully not too much dust, not too much mud, and let's hope we have a good day. No, I'm riding one of the other ones today, just did a few changes, a few new parts and whatever, so testing a bit of suspension stuff and bit of a test race for us, but let's see if it works.
I'm feeling good. I'm a bit nervous. I haven't been on the bike in a while. Been busy with all sorts of other stuff and work and house building and whatever. So hopefully I've done the fitness in the off season, so I'll see how it goes.
The juniors got about an 8k loop, and then the quads are going out on a 28 kilometer loop. The two-wheelers are going out at 12, same loop as the quad bikes, the main loop, and also 28 kilometers. Mostly grasslands, nice open spreads, nice fast flowing, and then a couple of mud patches. It's going to be interesting.
No, look, I think it's going to be a tough one. Jono always has a few surprises up his sleeve for us, so I don't expect a very fast race. So I think it might be a bit technical, but for the quads, there's a good turnout, so I think it might be a good race. I see there's big classes, so it might be a good one.
Tension on the line, but great support from the pits and on the sidelines for the quads and their first time to go 424 racing. The Q1s would be the first rider to go out, and they would be opening up the 28 kilometer loop. Remember, a lot of the riders did race a version of this track last year, but conditions were very different and the wind was blowing in a completely different direction. The flat track was used to separate the categories in the early running. David Stratham, who was one of our standout pre-race favourites, got the big hole shots, and he would be chasing into the dust of the Q1s to try and break through to the front of the race overall come the end of lap number 1. On the quad seniors, Brian Herbst used all of his experience to get the 424 Yamaha racing machine off the front. Brand new CST rubber getting him the hookup as always, and he was out and gone. He would also be chasing into the dust on the back wheel of the 2 pro classes above and out in the track in front of him. For the ladies' gate, quad racing has seen some good numbers coming back into the quad lineup for the ladies, so we expected to see good numbers not only at this event, but also on the rest of the championship tour as it races around the 2022 calendar. Ladies quad racing isn't over yet. For some, it looks like it has just begun. And then something that the 424 guys tried last year, they invited some of the side-by-sides to come racing. Just 2 racers making the lineup this time around, but it's something that Jono feels passionately about, and he's going to try and keep inviting these guys, and hopefully more and more will start to come. The track was quad safe, meaning it was side-by-side safe as well. And once the quads were out the gate, we turned our attention to the chaotic start line that was the junior event. The 85s were going to be the fastest kids out there on the big loop, and it was Corbin Muller that pulled his big first hole shot of the 2022 season. After the 85s, the 65s with a smattering of pros and a couple of new bloods coming in as well to take their chances out there on the 424 round number 1 Parkfontein track. The 85s and 65s clear of the gate. It was back on the line for the 50cc's. And then our sweet marshals and all of the chaperones would go out to make sure these fast juniors were all good for the rest of the day's racing. 424 seeing a lot of new blood and a lot of new names, with the idea of crowning new champions in 22. With the start scenario underway, it was now up to the riders on the juniors as well as the quads to go and figure out the track, see how it was all holding together, and watch out for those mud bogs that we're hinted at with the wry grin from Jono in his pre-event interview. For the 50cc's, Sebastian Nell walked away and took a number 5 finish on the 700, and you'll see as we go through the ladder climb here, a lot of new blood and new names, meaning it's great to see that development in the sport. Caden Denton on the 701 was good enough to walk away with a 4th place. Remember, many of these racers, either crossovers from motocross or farm kids and their first time out actually racing. Caleb Van Heerden on the 704 on the Husqvarna got himself up there into a 3rd place, so that's going to be a nice podium spot for him to build on going forward into the rest of the championship with DC Daniil. Now DC is a player and he has been on a couple of other tours, so he kind of knows what he's doing as far as racing with elbows up goes, but this would have been a different layout of the track, and for the juniors, quite hard pack as well. Joshua Van Heerden though was our first champion on the 50cc gate out at Parkfontein. He did a good job in the flatlands, and even though we'd had rains in the weeks building up to it, the junior loop held up well in the hard-packed mealy land sections of the track, and Parkfontein giving us a great start to the championship tour. Up and out into the bigger categories on the 65cc gate, Josh Fotheringham on the 707 was inside of a top 5 placing as well. Remember, most of these gates saw well over 10 riders in the queue. Leanne Grobler telling us that she is the lady to watch out for with that ponytail hanging out the back of her 705 machine. Walked away with a number 4 finish, putting a lot of boys into the bleachers behind her. The Companes have been racing on this tour for a very long time as well. They're comfortable with the layout and the setup of the 424s. This was Alexander Compain on the 706 that walked away with a 3rd place ride on the stacked 65cc gate. The 709 of Peter Hendricks was good enough to get all the way up into a number 2 spot ride as he tried to chase down his first win of the season. But it was Powell that got the job done, hammering his competition on the 65s. In the 85s, these were the guys that would go out there and throw some big, fast laps on the junior loop. Retief Hutting on the 305, making his way inside of a number 5 finish as well, with Chris Harmser Jr. on a 271, improving nicely up into a number 4 finish. Chris is the son of Big Chris from VW Mastercars, and these two do a lot of riding out in the Bronx area to get themselves ready for the season. Chris is starting to develop himself nicely as he looks to move up into the senior ranks for next season. A 4th place ride sets Chris Jr. up nicely. Breaking inside the top 3, and these are the guys that were throwing down the big lap times. Jacques Nel on the 4:51, one of the Husqvarna riders out there, placing nice and high, nice and comfortable. Very familiar setup on his machine. He liked the hard pack, he liked the lowland riding. Doesn't like it technical, likes to be able to stretch his entire gearbox, and got himself the reward there as well. Second place, and he would have been upset with that as well because he was banging out of the gate with a big hole shot. Corbin Miller from 444 Racing got himself up there inside of a number 2 finish and was in a big fight the whole way through the day with Nathan Sinclair. These two were the class of the field. Muller having to take the number 2 step this time around. And then Nathan Sinclair, he's been chopping and changing machinery the last couple of seasons, and now looks like he's arrived in 2022 on a factory fresh gas 85. And you know, if you want to look fast, you've got to be fast, and he definitely delivered on that. The 714 is going to be the championship points leader, and he is going to be hard to beat the rest of the championship if he's running this form at round number 1. Here's a confirmation and breakdown of the kids that made it inside the top 5 when it came to the championship chases. 85s, we just saw the kid rocking and rolling with the fastest race time, 1 hour 57, 10 laps counted for Sinclair, beating out on Muller. In the 65s, 9 laps tagged by our fastest racer, that was Dalton Powell, putting 1 lap down into Hendricks and Compain. And the 50cc's, the future of the sport, the top 2 kids tagging an impressive 8 laps of racing, but it was Van Heerden, Joshua that is, beating out on DC Daniel. That was job done for our juniors and the junior racing loop. Now we turned our attention to the big 28K'er for the quads and the big show. These guys would be the first out onto the big loop, and for many, it was their first big chance to see their setup on their bike and their training to see if it had all worked out in the off-season. Many were holding their breath, waiting for the mud box to appear and to see if everything was going to be solid for the rest of the day's racing. When we went into the breakdowns, the ladies category, inside the top 5, where we saw just under 10 racers going off the gate, it was Bernice Clausen walking away with a number 5 ride, chasing down on the back wheel of Albie de Beer. Now, a lot of these racers have been desperate for a championship where they can go out and race what we know as Club Quad Racing Championship and not have to go into a full provincial or regional championship. So 424 fits the bill absolutely perfectly for these ladies. Ronica Meyer was up there into a 3rd place, trying to get onto the back wheel of the top 2 ladies who were really fast on this terrain, very comfortable on their machinery as well. Megan Vilker was good enough for a number 2 spot, but the surprise package on the day for the ladies' gate was Corinne Thiessen. Absolutely styling on her machine, very comfortable on the terrain, knew how to get the best out of herself and her ride, and she did that with a big number 1. For the quad seniors, it was a similar situation where we saw a lot of different riders who aren't standout rides on any of the other tours. They seem to hold everything back for the 424s. Martin Ross was up there with Yanni Meyer, taking his KTM to a 4th place ride. Meyer has been on a lot of tours as well, so he knows how to ride his machine. Willie Jacobs, we've seen him on a couple of tours as well, and he brings the big Yamaha Raptor 700, which was maybe a little bit too much bike for this terrain, but he still rocked it up into a number 3 ride. Good low, almost flat track setup on the machine coming out of Arnaud Leroux. He knew what to do to get his machine rolling up there as well. Not only a 2nd in the seniors, but a very strong finish in the overalls. And then Brian Herbst, he's been absolutely aching to get a good ride going, and it's been 2 years since he's had a really good finish. This time around, the track suited him down to the ground. The quad was absolutely perfect. He got the whole shot, ran the numbers, won the seniors, as well as taking the big overall on the day. That was a huge result for Herbie. In the Q2s, this is the unlimited category, and a very rare Kawasaki big banger running the numbers out there. Did have to get a little help from his buddy towards the end, but Reini van Jasveld walked away with a 5th place finish nonetheless. Jan Ace was up there taking a number 4 ride as he brought it home without any assistance, up there into a number 4, chasing down onto the back wheel of JP de Toy, who got his 422 up into the 3 spot. of the old bombardiers still rocking and rolling out there. Chandre Fenter on the 757 did a good enough job for second place. You'll find with quad racing on cross countries and off-roads like this, it is all about staying out of trouble, picking the good lines through the mud, and just preserving your machine, making sure she comes all the way home with you. Yamaha was in very good nick, and one of the taller riders who could actually make the Raptor work for him. Tinus Kotze still rocking and rolling out there on his machine, and he was able to tag a top finish in the Q2s. That's the open category, and Kotze has been working on this machine for the last couple of years, and he looks like he's got it dialed in the sweet spot with his big win. The Q1s, which is reserved for 450s, saw some interesting situations. Fifth place eventually going to Jandre van Schalkwyk, even though he made a bit of a wrong slot down under the tunnels. Don't know how he managed that, but there's definitely a story to tell after this race. With a little help from our camera crew, he did get himself back up on four wheels and walked away with a number 5 ride, proving that you've got to bring it home to get the points on the plate. LJ Oosthuizen had a good setup on his machine. He is very, very good at setting up that bike, and he was very fast as well. Got a little bit quicker as the day went longer to tag a number 4 ride. Rudy Erasmus walking away with a 3rd place, and then onto the back wheel, it was 2nd place for Clayton Buerta. Buerta is in good form this season after taking his first GXCC win just a couple of weeks earlier. But it was Stefan Pretorius. There was just no beating him. He was extremely comfortable on the setup on his Suzuki LTR, got the most out of his 450cc machine, and just drove his advantage home. He had a rock-solid ride in the overalls as well, walking away with the top 3 placing overall. But the winning category is what he will remember going into round number 2 as he leads his championship challenge. After the race, we went down to catch up with overall winner Brian Herbst.
Yeah, look, it's a good day in the saddle. I'll take it. It was a good day. It was a good route. A little bit of a mess at the end of the timing. I had to end up going and doing an extra lap that wasn't necessary, and unfortunately took a tumble on that lap as well. So, but it is what it is. I'll take the class one. I'll take the overall. Good day out in the saddle. Yeah, a little bit of everything. A little bit fast flowing. Fair amount of mud and stuff at the back. But not nothing too technical. But a nice track, nice and fast, and kept you on your toes the whole game. Yeah. Look, Johnny runs a good event. So, again, it was a nice day out, fairly well run. Obviously there's a couple of little hiccups here and there, and guys riding markers down and stuff. But all in all, a good day. Great event. Again, thank you to our sponsors, CST Tyres. Give me tyres that work in everything. Dragon Energy for keeping us going. Dirt Nurse, their work's coming tomorrow to clean the bike. Thanks out to all the sponsors. Without them, it doesn't happen. And of course to the guru Gideon Jacobs for giving me the beast to ride on. I ran like a dream today.
Great racing from all of our quad racers. These were the guys that got the cheese. In the Q1, Stefan Pretorius, great lap times. Good numbers on the page for him, beating out on Buerta and Erasmus, putting Oosthuizen down into the 4th spot. In the Q2s, Tinus Kotze walked away with 6 laps in hand, putting a good advantage between himself and Fenter, with the toy in the number 3 spot. Overall win and the fastest guy on the day, it was Brian Herbst, tagging his first overall in many seasons, putting LaRue and Jacobs down into the 2s and 3s. Thiessen was the best of the ladies, putting Volker, Meyer, De Beer and Klaassen down to the 2, 3, 4s and 5s. And in the quad wows, those were our day license enters. Gomez beating out everyone else in the side-by-sides. Bassi Meyer putting well over half an hour into his competition. That was all our quads and juniors done. Now for the afternoon big show, the senior motorcycles.
How's it? Lucky about 44. Hope you all enjoyed and be safe out there.
Yeah, we're going to be sending it today. Hope we're going to be safe. Everybody ride safe.
I'm a bit nervous. I'm not really sure. Hopefully well. Hopefully I don't fall and slide in the mud. We'll see.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Ooh, there was some tension on the line, but everyone was desperate to rip the bars off and go 424 racing. OR1s, it was going to be all about the big bangers going on out there. One of the pre-race favourites Dwayne Clausen tucking the front, going into turn number 2. Looked like he got the whole shot wrapped up until that little bit of slippery ground caught him out. He would have to chase from the back of the pack, and he would then be in the dust. As the rest of the gates went out, they knew they were going to be in the challenge. The OR Pro-Ams would go out of the gates. A lot of these guys rocking out there on different machinery, and 1 or 2 would definitely be able to chase themselves up to hit the front and try and chase down the overalls. Back on the line, a few guys gooning it off the line. The OR Open A's would also see some key riders be able to chase up into the dust. The race organizers allowing around about a minute and a half dust gap, meaning you didn't go straight out and go blind into the dust bowl. Also, for the afternoon session, the wind had picked up as well, so it was going to help things out. The OR Open Bs would be next up to challenge out of the gate, and 1 or 2 seriously tasty lads were in this queue. The flat track section getting used for the send-out. The seniors would see some key riders. Yanni Potkida and Big Chris Homser, both of the factory stars coming out of the VW Hatfield Mastercars crew, would hit 1 and 2 and chase each other around the first opening lap. The OR Masters would see some different riders, and 1 or 2 riders we hadn't seen racing in many years. Ian Fenter was one of those guys as well, chopping and changing machinery the last 6 seasons. He was on different machinery once again as he tried to challenge for a top 4 placing. On the line, the high school gate's an interesting one. Most of these guys able to run out there on 125 machinery, and a couple of guys testing their mettle, jumping out of the junior 85s and their first time out onto the big bikes and onto the big course. The wild class is an interesting one. A mixed bag of bikes, mixed bag of riders, a lot of them first-time riders, first-time racers. And it would be up to them to try and figure out the track on laps 1, 2, and possibly 3 to see if they could get a taste for 424 racing. The 85 seniors would also be going out onto the track. Now, these are the kids that are on the big bike 85s, same as the junior 85s, but they are aging out. For many, their last season of racing on the junior machinery before they also jump out into the high school category. But they would race on the big main course. For the ladies on the two-wheelers, similar numbers that came in for the quad riders, and we saw 1 or 2 superstars coming out using the 424 cross-country and off-road series as championship race prep for the rest of their racing tours. One of the fun situations coming into play, like we see with motocross and the VMX Tour, these were the classics. A couple of ancient bits of machinery and very fast old dudes doing what they can on their old bikes. So much fun to see these bikes go out there. A little bit too much power though. Remember, these things have a bite of 2-stroke, and when the power band kicks, she kicks hard. The Mako of Trevor Guinness getting looped out, and he would have to chase from the back of the pack. The classics gave us our final send-out of the whole shot queue. And before we went out on the track to see how everyone was doing, we chatted to Jono about his partners and sponsors for 2022.
We really blessed this year. We've got a couple of great sponsors. Hatfield VW, Chris and his team, they're looking after us very, very nice. From the word go last year, they were on board. This year the same.
No, I think it's love of the sport. We've got a lot of business opportunities here as well, so I think that's why the main reason we're here. But overall, love for the sport, enjoying it. If you can help somebody, why not? And in the other way, we also benefit from it as well. So we want to get our name out there, see that we're in the market not only to sell cars, but we're only supporting a local guys in the events. So yeah, no, it's not only about selling cars and making money, but we're also giving something back as well.
Then we've got Anton and them. They sponsoring like our where we're living, our guest house and so forth up here, because I almost relocated to PE on a permanent basis, so I'm up and down between here and there. So they're covering all our living expenses and stuff up here. Lily Transport, every race they sponsor us a truck to use as a main stand. We do all our prize giving, everything from. So yeah, the guys are looking after us, and we're really appreciating it. HFC is looking after us with the production side of things. So yeah, we've got a lot of guys. That's EMD Boxburg. They're always on board, giving us a couple of prizes to give out to the guys. So yeah, we're really blessed. We can't complain.
.424 then in good shape, but out on the track, these are the guys that make it all happen. On the classic bikes, Gerald Lightly getting himself up there to complete his event on a number 5 finish. And the classic guys came back with good feedback as well. They said this is great for the classics, not too gnarly, not too fast, not too tech, just a good mix. Bertus Becker was out there on his old IT getting it done with a number 4 finish. Trevor Guinness did get himself up there to eventually finish in a number 3 spot. And then it was 2 of the Quackers, the Green Machines, the old KDX 200 of Roberto Forini getting it done into 2nd place. And then the big dog, Johan Visser on the 414 KX, one of the classics out there racing all the way up into a 1st place ride. Also riding out of EMD Racing. For many, this is great to see some of these old machines getting out there and getting it done. And this was one of the hardest bikes to ride back in the day, the big 500 KX. For the OR ladies, some new names joining the party here at the 424s, racing themselves up inside of a number 5. Morelli Fotheringham took the number 5 spot, with Shelley Compain taking down a number 4 ride. Compain looked comfortable out there as she challenged herself to get faster and faster each and every lap. Breaking inside the top 3 is the big brag though. Michelle Daniel on the 325 made some good shapes out there. Wasn't held back by any of the mud. Made some good line choices to get into the number 3 spot. With Nicole Compain just a little bit further up the road in the number 2s. Compain was good, but one lady was better. Danelle Delport coming off her first ever regional win at the OR1 Pro-Am Ladies Gate on the GXCCs just a few weeks back. And Danelle, racing out of the sleepover CIT Honda squad, takes her 2nd win of the season. This lady has come on in leaps and bounds in the 2022 championship, and another win will keep her very positive and very solid for the rest of the year. In the 85 seniors, we saw a really strong gate going out there. Junior Oosthuizen, who came off a ton of crashes and injuries last year, walks away with a number 5 ride, with Cecil Boddington taking his gas machine up to a number 4. These 85 seniors rocked some seriously fast lap times on the day. Hendrik Swart rocked out an old CRF 150. I love these bikes back in the day. I'm a big 4-stroker fan, and on the day, back in the day, some of these bikes were able to take some huge wins. Landreis Grobler got himself up there into a number 2 spot on the 717, also picking some really sweet lines on his KTM to get it up and running. But the 85 senior champ on the day, and who will be the championship leader for the rest of the season going into round number 2, was Ruan Upperman. You can see that he is about to age out. He is desperate to swing a leg onto a bigger bike, but for now, the 85 will do, and it took him to his win. For the new blood in the sport, the OR Wows, we really hope they enjoyed their time racing at the 424 series. Heinrich van Logenberg got himself up there into a number 5 ride, and it was Keith Cater on the 505, one of the older Kawasaki's. Kawasaki's back in the day used to rule the roost, and a couple of the factory squads for the last couple of seasons have been putting the green machines back on top. Cater will be riding on that wave. Dalman van Rooyen inside of a number 3 showed some great pace, chasing onto the back wheel of Gideon Smit, who walked away with a 2nd. Sean DeLanger on the 344 machine, getting himself up there and chasing down his first big win of the season. The WOW class allowing riders that chance to see how good they are, and then maybe next time we see them on one of the bigger pro gates. DeLanger was super tasty on the day, putting Gideon Smit and the Yamaha down to a number 2 spot. But DeLanger on the 344 was gone. He tags his first big win of the championship tour. Up into the high schools, where, like I said, most of the kids are out there rocking their way up the road on 125 machinery of all different ages. A couple of fresh 22s out there, a couple of guys on older wagons. Cameron Fairall got it done inside of a number 5. Up the road was Dwayne Combrink. Combrink was one of those two tall kids last season on the 85s. Now he makes the big move, and this will be his first full season on the 125s. 4th place, and also using the 424 series to sharpen his blade and get comfortable. Hansi van der Berg had that low slung style, made the bike really work for him, and just looked comfortable and confident. His style definitely paid off come the end of play, taking a very creditable 3rd place ride. Up the road was Leonard van der Berg, so the van der Berg bros running 2 and 3. Leonard beating out Bro this time around. But running the 450 number plate, Stephen Nell got the job done. Also, one of the smaller riders just making the move up into the 125s, climbing all over the front end of that bike, trying to figure things out and tame the power, the extra horsepower that comes when you switch from the 85s to the 125s. Nell, though, walks away with his big first high school win. On the Masters Gate, we said we haven't seen this guy for a very long time, and Ian Fenter rocks a different machine once again as he rolls out. First competitive ride we've seen coming out of Fenter in a very long time, and he credits a number 5 ride against some very strong competition. Charles Van Rooyen, who looks like a much younger man, his shape and style of riding on the bike sets him up very nicely. The efficient riding style bringing him a number 4 finish. Chris Stander, running out of the Racework squad, looked also very comfortable and enjoyed the terrain big time. This 28 kilometer didn't ask too much of the riders. You did have a little bit of resting time in between some of the gnarly mud bogs. Peter Jordan, running out of the VW Mastercars Hatfield squad, also made it some good podium placings for the entire squad. In fact, all of the riders on the team walking away with top 5 rides on their respective gates. But it was Johan Bosch. Bosch has been a top 3 racer in most of the big category races that we've seen over the last couple of tours, and a big win will also make him feel super happy going forward into the rest of the challenging 2022 Championship Series. Bosch on top for the first time in 2022. The OR Seniors was going to be a stacked gate. There's about 5 guys that could walk away with the win on the tour. Rudy Martins was credited with a number 5, with Christo de Toy just a little bit further up the road, running the 7-5-4 number, getting a 4th place ride. Hendrik Grobler was riding out of a number 3, but it was the 2 VW Mastercars Hatfield riders who were ruling the roost, running 2 and 1. Grobler was 3rd, and he would have to wait for another day and another challenge to try and see if he could beat out the guys that were just on the money on the day. Big Chris Holmser, the main guy behind the VW Mastercars Hatfield brand and one of the key sponsors of the series, walked away with his best ride of the last couple of seasons, 2nd place for him, and his good buddy and teammate Yanni Potgieter, both of them running massive 500 machinery. Potgieter was fast. Even though he made 1 or 2 small mistakes, he was still good enough to walk away with a big win. No injuries, no problems on the big wagon. Potgieter swung a leg, fired up the big 5 honey, and still ran away with his first big win of the season. In the OR Open Bs, it was Justin Hartsleeve that walked away inside of a number 5. Up the road from him, getting roosted to pieces, was Stefan Pieterse. Pieterse plays the game of suns out, guns out, and had his arms flexed the whole way around the big loop to take that number 4 ride. Raymond Welding on the 906 took his Suzuki machine all the way up there into 3rd place. One of the older bikes out there, but if you're comfortable on your wagon, keep her trucking. Welding on a RM250 Smoker, doing a great job to run the numbers. Ben Jordan, also out of VW Mastercars Hatfield, getting it done inside of a number 2 spot, putting them on the box once again, this time in the OR Open B category. But on this gate, it was Nathan Godrich who came back firing hard. A couple of problems at the latter half of the 2021 season and the championship, but Godrich was back on the money once again, rocking and rolling his way up to a 5:09. When we saw this guy was on the line, we knew he was going to be one of those riders to walk away with a high overall as well. Climbing up the ladder as we get a little bit quicker and a little bit faster, Cliffy Full-Yun taking a number 5 ride in the OR Open A's, with Quinlan Smith on the 410 up the road in 4th. feedback was very positive coming back from the riders, and even though this version of this track was used in the late half of the 2021 championship, dust was a key factor. But now, since the rains have come, the dust stayed down and a little bit of rain did help things out. Jaapie Kombrink walked away with a number 3 ride in this very competitive gate. Casper Kruger inside of a number 2, looking very nice and comfortable. And Millie Clausen on the 445 was a new winner on the season, getting it done in the Open A's. OR Pro-Ams. These were the second gate to go off in the afternoon session, and 1 or 2 of these riders did manage to break their way inside of a top 10 in the overalls as well. Werner Seider taking number 5 onto the back wheel of Neil van der Westhuizen. 1 or 2 little jumps, but they were very mild, very rollable jumps. And no riders reporting any big crashes or injuries on the day, so that's good for the start of any championship tour. Ivan Stroh came back with a 3rd place ride after almost a full season off of racing, with Vickers Olivier. With that super efficient riding style of his, just sits down, gets those elbows and shoulders nice and high, and he brought his machine, the Smoker, up to a number 2 spot. But on this gate, that is the OR Pro-Ams, it was Jean-Dre Olivier on the Sherco. One of the happiest dudes out there, and well, he might be as well, winning out his class and walking away with a top 5 overall as well. And then up onto the Pro Gate, where Brandon Vance was also a happy chappy. Went down in flames a couple of times in the mud, but still picked himself up and got on the cable to walk away with a number 5 ride. Dwayne Clausen had some bike issues, so he started on a Husqvarna, but he ended on a fire-breathing 500cc Honda CR. I think Clausen just looks better on that machine as well. But man, that thing is pretty. Ashley Engelbrecht walking away with a 3rd place. Ashley, we have seen him racing for the last couple of years, and he just seems to find a track that suits him down to the ground. 3rd place, he'll be very happy to start out his championship challenge with that one. So who were the big bangers inside of the top 2? Sean Badenhorst knows his way around tracks like this. He's a big guy as well. Can stand a little bit above some of the dust and roost out there. And his experience and very clean approach to the race showed true with a 2nd place ride. Good points to start out his championship challenge. But the main man was Dean Denton. We were just lucky that we caught up with this guy before he started to stretch his legs. He was a happy chappy off the line. He was even happier to see the flag come the end of play. Dean Denton takes his big win at the 424s to set up himself as the man to beat for the rest of the championship. Congrats to Denton, the big guy taking the big win out of the Pro Gate at round number 1 at Valkfontein.
The track was fast, flowing, wet, muddy. It had dry pieces, it had dust, it had grass, it had a bit of everything. It was one of my favorite tracks in the last 2 years. First time doing this Valkfontein race, and I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I've done it for 2 years in a row now, and I'll do every one I can. I enjoy 44 races. My whole family does it. My daughter, my son, my wife, we all do it, yeah. Well, weekend off-riders, we've joined the 44 races now for the last 2 years. We've got about 16 people in our group, weekend off-riders that's joined the 44 group as well. So shout out to Picky, that helps us all enter the races, join the races. So shout out to him and his family.
Breakdown of the categories then, and a confirmation of Denton's big win, but it wasn't by much, just over 30 seconds ahead of Badenhorst and Engelbrecht, with Clausen still tagging a number 4 ride after his bike issues early on in the race. Olivier beating out on Olivier, that's Jean-Dre ahead of Vickers, with Stroh and van der Westhuizen running out the 3s and 4s. In the Open A's, it was Millie Clausen beating out on Kruger and Kombrink, with Smit, Viljoen and Garcia taking us to a number 6. Godrich was the main man, and his lap time showed that he was inside of a top 5 overall as well, ahead of Jourdan and Welding. In the seniors, Yanni Potgieter, even with that crash, took the big win ahead of his good buddy and teammate Chris Homser. So it was VW Hatfield Mastercars on top, with the Masters category showing that Johan Bosch has got wins in him. And he showed that, beating out on Jourdan Stander, Van Rooyen, Venter and Compain. The high schools, the new blood onto the big loop. Stephen Nell getting his first big win of the Championship Challenge, beating out on the Vandenbergs of Leonard and Hansi. In the Wows, this is the new blood to the sport, taking a chance and coming racing on the 424s. We hope they enjoyed their time. It was Sean DeLange with the big win ahead of Gideon Smit. In the 85 seniors, Ruan Upperman getting the win over Grobler Swat, Boddington, Oosthuizen and Nordea. And on to the ladies' gate. It was all about Danelle Delport getting her second win of the season and her first ever 424 win, putting 5 laps in, beating out on Compain and Daniil. For the classics, great to see these old wagons still rock and rolling out there. Johan Visser and the big KX 500 take the win at the opening round. So that was Varkfontein, a great start to the 424 Championship in 2022. Mark your calendars and watch out for the press as round 2 venue is about to be announced. All of this 424 cross-country racing action was proudly brought to you by HFC Engineering, VW Mastercars Hatfield, AC Crane Maintenance, EMD Boxburg, Insight Printing and Packaging, and the 424 Garage.
So Jono has got his whole calendar out there. Sounds like he's flying up from PE next week to check out the next venue, and hopefully we'll be able to work with him again on the rest of his season. Now, I said that we had 3 events happening on that same weekend. So we had the boys go out there for the 424 full race and full edit. I sent Andy Pandy out there to the EWXCs to get a couple of snippets, and I went out to the National Off-Road out at Legends MX. So that's what's coming down the pipe next week. We'll be doing a very quick review of the EWXCs and the Nationals, and then pretty much by then we get ourselves ready for the next round of the GXCCs. So that's going to be looking forward into Hollywood Hollywood episode number 7 of the season. Really hope you guys are enjoying what's happening. I hope you enjoyed our first big production that we have done for the 424 guys, and we'll see you around the bend. Laters.